and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and a live internet stream. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics Live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another tremendous installment from very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. Now, I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind usually the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the depths of the Middle Swamp in Wyoming's capital of Cheyenne. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy, snowy, cold, swampy Wednesday. Well, I'm down here in the Middle Swamp for one more day of the 2026 legislative session. And the only reason I drove down here is just to see if the legislature was going to override some of the vetoes that Governor Gordon has churned out of his office. And as it sits right now, there are, let's see here, there's House Bill 178. That's the union bill that says, maybe if you want to be part of a union, you should just cut a check to them. We don't need to deduct that from your paychecks. And then there's the SAPA bill, Senate File 101. That one, we were pretty certain that the governor was going to veto. And then there's the repeal of the SIPA coffee can slush fund. So right now, there's three of them, and no doubt there will be more as the day progresses. But the big news today, the breaking news on today's episode, is the Open Range Record has discovered that security footage from around the check incident has been deleted. You heard that correctly, my friends. That security footage in the middle of a criminal investigation has been absolutely deleted. Now, and let me just fill you in on what happened. Oh, and before I go too far down this road, I don't know exactly how long we're going to go today. I am down in the Middle Swamp, and I've got to get over to the Capitol and do a couple of other things. So I'm going to give you a couple of stories this morning, and we'll just see how far we get down the line of the program. But let's start with the breaking news story. So the footage in question is all of the footage from outside of the Legislative Service Office entrance. Now, the Open Range Record had submitted a FOIA request for all of that footage from February 9th to 11th. And the reason we did that is to corroborate testimony that was given in the Super Special Investigative Committee. So we submitted a FOIA request to the Wyoming Highway Patrol, which it's the Highway Patrol that runs the security cameras in the Capitol building. And essentially, and you can go read the article, it's on the Open Range Record, it's pretty detailed. I'll get to it here in just a second. But the long and the short of it is, we submitted this FOIA request to the Wyoming Highway Patrol so we could corroborate testimony that was given by Representative Carly Provenza in the Super Special Investigative Committee. Now, we got two responses from the Wyoming Highway Patrol. The first one was curious, to say the least. It pretty much said, this isn't a valid open records request, which if you read the article, you can see what the request was, and it absolutely is valid because the Capitol the footage of inside the Capitol, except for the governor's office and a couple of other little places, is absolutely open records, especially in all of the common areas. And I've even FOIA'd security footage from the floor. Now, the Highway Patrol sent me the footage from the wrong camera that didn't show what I was looking for, but I still got the footage. But in this case, the responses that we were given from the Wyoming Highway Patrol were pretty much unresponsive. The first one said, "This is not a valid records request." Now, shortly thereafter, we received a second response from the Wyoming Highway Patrol. This one said that the videos had timed out in the system and that they're no longer available. All right, so let's first go to the article that's on the Open Range Record. It's the top story. If you go there, I mean, it's the one right at the top, but it's entitled Capitol Security Video Surrounding Check Incident Deleted. Now, let me just read you the couple of the opening paragraphs of this. And I quote, "Security footage from the Wyoming Capitol requested as part of the investigation into campaign checks distributed on the House floor in February has been deleted and is no longer available," according to the Wyoming Highway Patrol. The Open Range Record submitted a public records request seeking video from February 9th through February 11th, including footage from the House floor and cameras located outside the office of the Legislative Service Office Director, Matt Obrecht. There is an ongoing criminal investigation into questions of bribery, which was announced on Facebook by the Laramie County Sheriff's Office on February 14th. When the Open Range Record submitted a request for security footage from Capitol cameras, a response from the Wyoming Highway Patrol indicated that the recordings were no longer available. Quote, "The videos requested have timed out in the system and is no longer available." Now, okay, so I'm not just being a grammar Nazi here, but pay attention to the words that were used in the response to our records request. The videos requested have timed out of the system and is no longer available. It should say are no longer available. So it's very clear that somebody typed this in. Now, that was the second request. The first one said let's see here. Yeah, the next request portal, which is used by the Wyoming Highway Patrol for open records request, closed the request with a different explanation the first time around, saying, quote, "This is not a valid records request," which would lead one to believe that those records actually did exist at the time, or at least that's how I read it. You can read the article and you can decide for yourself what you think that means. But in my mind, that says that those records do exist, that they are there. Now, the second one clearly says that they no longer exist. Now, this is in the middle of a criminal investigation. The Laramie County Sheriff's Office is investigating questions of bribery. So you would think that all the footage surrounding that incident in the Capitol itself would be preserved. Because here's the thing. And I'm not casting any aspersions here. I'm just asking questions. But it's the Wyoming Highway Patrol that has custody of those records. And they knew that this investigation was going on because it was announced on February 14th on Facebook. Everybody knew that Sheriff Kozak was investigating this. But apparently the footage has been deleted. So there is no way to corroborate at least what the media is being told. There's no way to corroborate whether or not Carly Provenza was actually telling the truth or whether she was lying. Now, also in the article, there are some paragraphs that talk about what the footage was that we were trying to corroborate. And here it is. So before the Super Special Investigative Committee, Carly Provenza testified in front of, she gave a couple of interviews. The first one was she gave one interview anyway. The first one was to Jake Nichols of the Cowboy's morning show, in which she said, I gotta tell you, Jake, I sent that picture to a member of the media moments after I took it. Okay, so that's the first interview. Now, when she goes in front of the investigative committee, she makes it sound as though she consulted a whole bunch of people before sending that to the media. In fact, specifically, she calls out Katie Talbot, the chief clerk of the Wyoming House, and then she says she talked to Liz Storer, and I believe she also said she talked to Representative Lloyd Larson. Now, Liz Storer told her to go talk to LSO, and so she at least implied that she went and talked to the staff. Now, that's very different than what she said in the interview with the Cowboy. Now, since then, she's given another interview to Wyoming Public Media, or Wyoming PBS, or it's all the same group. Anyway, and she pretty much told them she sent the video to the media, shortly after she took it. So there's different questions that we were trying to corroborate and just to kind of figure out what the timeline was. And we can't do that now because the footage has been deleted. And, this raises some serious questions. First, I think it raises questions into the legitimacy of the investigation. That if we're not even going to preserve evidence that would, say one way or another what happened, how legitimate could that investigation be? And then secondly, it raises questions about how serious the legislature is about transparency. Uh-oh, we lost the microphone. What happened here? Uh-oh, there we go. We still got it? Anyway, I don't know what just happened. There we go. Okay, so it was my headphones. Hey, we're at Little America in Cheyenne, so who knows what's happening. Anyway, so it raises serious questions about how the legislature actually views transparency. Now, I'm not casting any aspersions on any of the leadership though I probably should. But I mean, this one is directed straight at the Wyoming Highway Patrol. They should have preserved that security footage, and they shouldn't have allowed it to expire. But they did, and now there's no way to prove one way or another. If testimony that was given by the complainant, and we'll just say that that's Carly Provenza, and somebody else. So there's your top story, and I think it's a big one. I don't generally buy into any conspiracy theories. And I don't believe that there are any coincidences I don't believe in coincidences anyway, but certainly not with Wyoming politics. And the point here, my friends, is that we have to have transparency. We have to allow the media to look at what's going on. And when the motion on the floor from Carly Provenza's mouth was that this needs to be open to the public, how dare those videos get deleted? Now, there is a possibility, and we do mention this in the article, that those things just timed out of the system, that the system just sort of overwrites everything, and, it's just been too long. Well, again, the criminal investigation was launched on February 14th, which was, less than a week after the incident. So you would think that those records would be there and would be available to the public. But they're not, my friends. So there's the big story, and I find this absolutely shocking. And it doesn't really matter what media source is asking for records. A records request is a records request is a records request. And frankly, this one stinks to high heaven. All right, so let's go ahead and take our first break. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you about the bills that are available to be overridden. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program. Welcome back to the program. Cowboy State Politics Live on a Wednesday from the swamp. I'm David Iverson. And if you're just now joining us, I started the program with a breaking news story about how security footage from inside the Capitol building has been deleted. And it's the footage that would have corroborated what Carly Provenza told the super special investigative committee. And so, according to the Highway Patrol, there's no way to verify if what she was saying was the truth or if she was just full of a load of bull crap. No way to know, but she's a Democrat, so I think you can probably guess what the answer to that one is. So go check out the Open Range Record. There is a great article that was written by Don Marquardt with our breaking story. And this is one that the rest of the media doesn't have. And my guess is, since they kind of don't like conservatives at all, they probably won't reach out to us and they probably won't cover it. Good. I mean, if they do, good on them. They should. This is a big story. And it's one that raises some serious questions about the legitimacy of the investigation into this whole check stupid thing, the check sham. And it also raises questions about transparency in the legislature. You know, I mean, how seriously do they take their responsibility to provide information to the public? And I think that's a valid question. That's a buzzword that we hear all the time. I gotta have transparency. I'm going to govern with transparency. We hear it all the time from all politicians, but do they really mean it? And so, if the legislature had, any stones about them at all, they'd march right down to the Wyoming Highway Patrol and demand that video, because they certainly didn't give it to us. Now, I forgot to show you what those emails looked like before. Let's see here. We want to go to that one. Yeah. So before I continue, let me go ahead and show you what those emails looked like. And so you can see for yourself what we were sent from the Wyoming Highway Patrol. And let's see here. We're going to have to do it the weird way here. So we're going to entire screen. So it's going to look a little strange for just a second. Yep, told you. Wow. Okay. So here's the first email that the Open Range Record was sent from the Wyoming Highway Patrol. And you can see that it says, this is not a public records request, which it absolutely was. In the article, you can go look up, there's a screenshot of the original request. We've also got emails that were copied to the Legislative Service Office. The reason I only published the one in the article is because you can see that it's absolutely sent to the Wyoming Highway Patrol. So the very first response we got from the HPs was, this is not a public records request. Yeah, it is. We're requesting video footage from a common area inside the Capitol, so it absolutely is. So a little bit later, and you can see this one was sent on March 10th at 8:30 in the morning. And so here's the next one. This one was sent shortly thereafter, like seconds later, and it says, hello. Please be advised, per our troopers, the videos requested have timed out in the system and is no longer available. Okay, now, again, I'm not being a grammar Nazi, but word choice is very important. And here it says the videos is not available. Now, I mean, all media outlets have a copy editor, and so I'm sure ours is cringing as she reads this, but anyway, it's clear that this was typed in and somebody wrote it. And so a couple of questions here. First, why would you send multiple responses? And why did the first one say this is not a public records request? I don't know, mistake? I don't know what it could be, but it's certainly suspicious, and it leads me to believe that at the time that was sent, those records did exist. And then the second one was sent shortly thereafter. So anyway, there you have that one. And you can read the article. You can make up your own mind what that all means. But I think you can tell what I think it means. All right, my friends. So there are 3 bills right now that are up for veto overrides. And the way that it works in the legislature is the Senate and the House take turns on which ones, who gets to decide which ones they're going to try to override. So last budget session, it was the House that had the first move. This year, it's the Senate. So the Senate would vote to override a veto, and then it would move over to the House. And so first thing, we got to wait and see what the Senate is going to do. But there's three bills. There's the union bill, which is House Bill 178. And simply put, what that one would do is prevent union dues from being deducted out of paychecks. Now, you may not think that that's a big deal, but it actually is, because you and I pay for the time it takes to process all of those deductions. So it actually does cost you and I money. And secondly, if you want to join a union, why shouldn't you cut a check yourself? If it's so important to you, and the union is so powerful, then maybe its union members should just write the check themselves for their union dues and leave the taxpayer out of it. So that's what that one would do. And then there's the SAPA bill, which that's the one I'm going to talk about first. There's a couple of pieces in the cow pie, and there's been a kind of a continuing back and forth between me and the cow pie on this. And the first one being that they published an article that was absolutely wrong. That I don't understand how you get that many things wrong about a piece of legislation, unless, of course, that's just a narrative that you're pushing. But it led you to believe that the SAPA bill, Senate File 101, would put individual officers at risk of a $50,000 fine. That's not true at all. The bill says over and over that the fine would put the agency itself at risk of $50,000 fine should firearms be seized for in helping federal law enforcement. So there's two things there that are important. The original article, which I do have a copy of, but anyway, mentions that that individual officers would have what's called sovereign immunity taken away from them. Well, first, individual officers don't have sovereign immunity. They have what is called qualified immunity. The difference is sovereign immunity protects the state and the agency. Qualified immunity protects the individual officer. The bill doesn't do anything with qualified immunity. So later, the cow pie went and corrected that article, much to their credit. Thank you very much. Credit where credit is due. However, they still can't get it right. So the most recent article let's see here. It's this one. So when they updated it, Gordon vetoes Second Amendment Protection Act, and in the article it says, and you got to scroll about a little bit about halfway down. Here it says, quote, both chambers of the legislature convened Wednesday, that's today, and if first the Senate, then the House of Representatives return a 2/3 majority in the bill's favor, they'll override the governor's veto. The bill would impose, and still quoting now, a civil penalty of $50,000 on Wyoming agencies, they got that part right, that advanced enforcement solely on federal gun laws. It contains carve-outs that would protect illegal aliens. It says protect law-abiding citizens from gun law overreach. And here's the problem. Here's the next sentence. It also could apply a misdemeanor to individual officers who advance federal gun law enforcement. That's already the law. That's absolutely included in Wyoming SAPA law, which was passed in 2022. It's Senate File 102. If you would do, and I don't understand how you get this many things wrong, unless, of course, you're just trying to push a narrative. So don't listen to the media. Read the bill for yourself. One of the few times you'll hear me quote Dennis Bo Beitman, the president of the Senate, when they were debating the bill on the Senate floor. He stood up and he said, "Read the bill." So I suggest Claire McFarland, the cow pie, whomever's writing for them, go read the bill because you didn't get it right again. And, credit for correcting it the first time, but you still have it screwed up. Now, there's an op-ed written in the cow pie from J.R. Riggins. Now, unfortunately, this guy, he's a disaster. He campaigned as a conservative, and now he's got an op-ed in the cow pie. Probably there's a good reason why he didn't send it to me, though I would have printed it. Absolutely, we would have published it. But here's what Riggins says in his op-ed, and this is just, Ridiculous. So anyway, he says, quote, "For 20 years, we've observed the Supreme Court decide in our favor regarding the Second Amendment. History doesn't guarantee the courts will always see the Bill of Rights as we do." Well, as I do. I don't know about you, Riggins, because I'm about to show you how confused you are. But if we want to prepare for such a possibility, I believe we can do better than this. SAPA specifically references federal law that currently doesn't exist. That's the point. The point is to prevent the enforcement of federal gun control laws. That's the whole point behind it, J.R. Riggins, because we don't know what Congress is going to do. We don't know who's going to be the next president. We don't know who's going to get elected to Congress. Well, we do know it's not going to be Reed Reisner, but anyway, but we don't know what the federal government is going to do. And so the Second Amendment Protection Act is an attempt to prevent federal gun control from being enforced in the state of Wyoming. That's the whole reason why we passed it the first time, and it's the whole reason why we have amendments this time. But Riggins goes on. SAPA is, or ought to be, directed at proposed federal legislation. It is! I don't understand how these people just can't read a bill. Does federal legislation appear overnight? No, you see it coming. If ever passed by Congress or implemented by executive order, this is when state legislators and the executive should stand together and say, this shall not pass. So instead, he's making two contradictory arguments. The first one, he's saying, the SAPA bill ought to focus on proposed legislation. It does. That's the whole point behind it. And then he argues that, well, we should just wait to see what they pass and then act. You see, J.R. Riggins is, he doesn't know which side of the coin he's on. In fact, if you look at evidence-based Wyoming, which, again, the only thing evidence-based Wyoming does is it measures how often a legislator votes with the Republicans versus how often they vote with the Democrats. That's the only thing that it does. So it just charts the votes. And J.R. Riggins shows up as, and the other thing is that evidence-based Wyoming ranks the legislators from most conservative to least conservative. And so in the House of Representatives, J.R. Riggins is number 36, only voting with the Republicans 70% of the time. So, less than 3/4 of the time, he's voting with the Republicans. And the other votes that he's taken have been pretty disastrous. You can see that he's not in favor of the SAPA bill. And so, that guy, he needs to be replaced. And if you live in Casper, let's work on finding a replacement for that guy. And it's absolutely incredible, my friends. So anyway, that's going to do it for this morning's installment of the broadcast. Sorry, it's a little short today. I've got some other stuff to do, but I will be back tomorrow to update you on what happened down here in the swamp with those three bills. And then, if there's anything that comes up about the deleted footage, I'll update you on that one as well. But here's the thing, my friends. Go read that article. It's really important. Like, if you care about what your government is doing, if you care about holding officials accountable, and if you care about the government being transparent, and you got to ask, where is the footage? What happened? How did it get deleted? Who's the guy that walked down there and said, hey, guys, delete this? I have a couple of theories myself, but I think that you're smart enough to figure it out. So anyway, go read the article on the Open Range Record. It should blow your mind. But for now, my friends, from the depths of the Middle Swamp in Wyoming's capital of Cheyenne, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics, my friends.